Okay, so for my book review, I read Esperanza Rising, which focuses on a Mexican family immigrating to the United States. And I also read American Born Chinese, which focuses on a boy who is a Chinese American student. Esperanza Rising is about Sixto, Ramona, and Esperanza Ortega, who are a wealthy land-owning family in Mexico. The family is met with tragedy the day before Esperanza's 13th birthday, when Sixto was killed by a group of Mexican bandits. Esperanza's uncles were appointed owners of the farmland when Sixto died, but Ramona and Esperanza owned the house. One evening, the house burnt down, and soon Ramona and Esperanza found themselves without a home and needed a plan on how to survive. With the help of friends, Esperanza and her mother migrated to California and were able to find work on a produce farm. Esperanza found herself in a difficult situation, not knowing basic life skills like how to sweep, do laundry, or even how to work at a job. She eventually figured out how to do these things and helped her family and friends. Sadly, her mother became ill, unable to work, and she had to be admitted to the hospital. Esperanza stepped up and took charge of her family situation and became the rising star of hope that her family needed. American Born Chinese is a story about three different characters. Jin Wang, who is a Chinese American student who wants to be an all-American boy. We have Danny, who is an all-American boy who has an obnoxious cousin, Chin Ni, who seems to be ruining Danny's life. And we have the Monkey King, who cannot find his place in the world. These characters struggle with who they are and who they think they should be. Eventually, these three will need to find a way to fix the mess that they created in their lives, and eventually they'll rely on each other to do so. Esperanza would be best described as having an adversarial identity, rejecting English and the American culture. When Esperanza and her mother were first crossing the border into California, she was concerned that their papers were not going to be in order, and then they would be sent back to Mexico and have to live with her uncle. She became nervous when the immigration officer was talking to them and asked them why they were migrating to the United States. She was afraid that she would say the wrong thing and then they would eventually be sent back. Her mother took charge of the situation, and eventually their paperwork was approved and able to continue their journey into California, and you can find that on pages 81 to 83 in the book. Later in the book, Esperanza and her friends found out that the owners of the produce camp are bringing in old army barracks for the Oklahoma workers to live at, and installing hot water, toilets, and they were even going to have a swimming pool. They were told that the Mexicans can even go swimming at the pool that was going to be at the Oklahoma's workers camp. They were only going to be able to go swimming, though, one day a week on Fridays before the pool got clean on Saturday mornings. So Esperanza, she found herself really upset with that idea. In the book, she made the comment, do they think we're dirtier than others? That's on page 217 to 218. She was obviously feeling those discriminatory factors since the camp she lives at does not have running hot water or indoor plumbing, let alone a pool. From these two examples, I would describe Esperanza as having an adversarial identity. Also from the book, Esperanza is never described as speaking English as well or joins with the other workers with the protest about the work conditions. She stays focused on working hard to earn money to take care of her mother and afford to send money for her grandmother to come and live with them in California as well. The characters from the American Born Chinese, I would say that I seeing ethnic flight, adversarial identity, and transcultural identity stances with all the characters in the book. Jin Wang is a character that I best describe as an ethnic flight identity. At the beginning of the book, Jin and his friends would play with Transformer figurines and watch Saturday morning cartoons at his Chinatown apartment near San Francisco. When Jin started school, his American English teacher introduced him as Jin Jiang from China and not Jin Wang from San Francisco. That's on page 30 of the book. And then he had to correct his teacher. Jin met a new student who is Asian as well, Wei Chen Sun. Wei Chen Sun tries to speak to Jin in Chinese, and Jin tells him that they are in America and needs to speak English. You find that on page 37 of the book. Let's see. And as Jin gets older, he starts to crush on a girl named Amelia Harris, who's a white American girl. We also see in the book that Jin, when he was younger, took dumplings to lunch for his school lunch. And then as he got older, as he's trying to fit in to more of the American culture, he then starts bringing sandwiches instead of eating his dumplings. He's really into this girl, Amelia, and so he notices like the friends that she has have like curly hair, permed hair, so he decides to get a perm like Amelia's friend. And then he just becomes more confident in himself in that way. So he decides to ask Amelia out on a date. When Jin and Amelia were on a date, they went to the movies. He was trying to do the sneak stretch around to put his arm around her in the movie when he realizes that he has some body odor. Jin's parents lived in China, and they did not use deodorant or a deodorant product, and that was something that they never bought for Jin. So he could smell himself, and he became self-aware from that. So he quickly went to the bathroom and put on some soap to try to mask his body odor. And then he went back and sat down with Amelia in the movie, and then felt that confidence again and put his arm around her. You can find that in pages like 168 and 170 in the book of his little bathroom scene. As he's putting on deodorant in the bathroom. Jin is then confronted with this internal struggle on trying to figure out who he wants to be. He starts saying some terrible things to his friend Wei Chen, and eventually ruins their relationship. Jin's ultimate wish of becoming a young white male becomes true, and he transforms into this new person, which he then renames himself as Danny. The Monkey King I would best describe as having a transcultural identity. He's very, at first in the book, very proud of his powers that he gained and all the good things he has done for his subjects on Fruit Flower Mountain. He was ready then to attend this dinner party where all the god and goddesses and demons were in attendance. When he arrived, the guard would not allow him to join the party because, one, he was not wearing shoes, and two, because he was a monkey. The Monkey King was embarrassed and outraged that he was not allowed entrance into the party, so he just beat everybody up at the party and left. When he got home from the party, then he realized that he smelled like a monkey. You kind of find that on pages 7 through 20 as he's figuring out who he is, beating everybody up, and then for the first time he felt like he smelled like a monkey. The Monkey King then decided that he needed to change, as is his subject, so he ordered them all to be wearing shoes. And then he trained even harder to master the disciplines of Kung Fu. He was trying to earn his way to be recognized essentially as a god. He trained, and then he gave himself a new title called the Great Sage, Equal of Heaven. He was then summoned by the other gods and sentenced to death. The Great Sage was determined to show that he was as powerful as the rest, and he used his powers to fight them all. Wei Chen, who is Jin's friend, I would best describe him as an adversarial identity character. Wei Chen's son is a student that immigrates from Taiwan, who is in the same class as Jin Wang. Wei Chen tries to speak to Jin in Chinese, but then Jin tells him that he needs to speak in English because they were in America. Wei Chen is trying to make friends based on the commonality of being Asian. And you can also tell that Wei Chen's English is not very strong. So he struggles a little bit at first trying to talk to Jin in English. As the boys get older, they're probably maybe junior high, middle school age. You can see Wei Chen and Jin are having lunch outside, and Jin is eating a sandwich, and Wei Chen is eating more of the traditional food, using chopsticks, whatever he brought for lunch. And then Wei Chen also starts dating a girl. Her name is Susie Nakamura, who is also of Asian descent. In Esperanza Rising, Esperanza and her mother are essentially forced to leave Mexico and their homes because of bullying or a takeover from Esperanza's uncles. When Esperanza's father, when he had died, the uncles were given the right to the land and wanted to take over the estate. When Tio Luis proposed marriage to Esperanza's mother, at first she refused, but then he explained how difficult he can make her life. Essentially, a few days later, after she turned him down, their house burnt down. So Esperanza's mother knew that they were no longer safe and were going to need to flee to America. As Esperanza, her mother, and their friends left to America, Esperanza starts to see that people who are not as fortunate as she had been, how they live and survive. While on a train, Esperanza's mother met a woman who had very little, yet she gave Ramona 2 hens and a crippled woman on the train some money. Miguel, who is Esperanza's friend, he was a servant on the plantation farm down in Mexico. He tells Esperanza that, quote unquote, the rich take care of the rich and the poor take care of those who have less than they have. And you find that on page 79. This is one of the first criticisms that Esperanza hears from Miguel. When Esperanza is in California, she meets Isabel, who is a cousin of Miguel. Isabel asks Esperanza if it's true that she was wealthy in Mexico and always getting away, having the dolls, the fancy clothes that she wanted. Esperanza found herself being irritated with the questioning and trying to change the subjects, and then the girls start talking about school. Isabel is excited about going to school and asks Esperanza if she knows how to read. Of course, Esperanza does. She tells Isabel that when she was in Mexico, she went to a private school and essentially has an 8th grade level education. Isabel is excited that she gets to go to a school near the work camps that they're at and learn how to read and eventually learn some English as well. Esperanza thought that was silly that Isabel